Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Your dials to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class today. Today it's Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I'm Vincent Finelli. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. If you'd like to call us, we'll be glad to pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. And if you would like to listen on your telephone, we have a telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Nathan is busy connecting with Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and he'll let me know as soon as he's connected. I wanted to share something with you that is just a tip. Here at the farm, we have what's called a hydrant, like a water faucet. But they are, we'll call them freeze-proof. And if you install them right, they probably are. What they are is it's a handle. Sometimes you see a bucket of water attached to the top, and you lift up this handle, and it'll fill up the bucket. Well, we have them around our farm. And the problem with them today, it's a different problem from many years ago. They used to be connected underground with galvanized plumbing, galvanized pipe, heavy iron pipe. Well, that's not the case today. Most of the time, because galvanized plumbing doesn't last very long. So we use plastic plumbing.
I hate it.
3/4 inch. Mm-hmm. And so what I do when I install one, I install the pipe going to the hydrant below the frost line. Here it's maybe 18 to 24 inches. Then while I have that hole open for the plastic pipe, I will drive in a fence post, one of those green T-posts. And I'll pound that in, touching vertically the entire length of the hydrant. And I'll drive it in way deeper than the hole for the hydrant. And the reason for that is I'll have more support. Then I use tie wraps, UV protected tie wraps, to secure the hydrant to the T-post. And it'll last much longer because you're less likely to break off the elbow at the bottom of the hydrant with this method. So if anyone has any questions about details on how to do it, instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor@usaprepares.com. And I have a link that if you type in vincentfinelli.com, Vincent, V-I-N-C-E-N-T, Finelli.com, one word, vincentfinelli.com, my name. It'll take you right to our website, usaprepares.com. Vincent Finelli, Finelli, that's my real name, .com. Doc Graham's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome.
Am I on? Do you hear me?
You are on. Yeah, absolutely. 5 by 5.
No idea the hassle I had this morning with everything. Microsoft first has changed Skype. I haven't used, and I didn't have my computer that have Skype on it loaded, so I had to do it all. And of course, something has attacked that computer. I am.
Did you say micro shaft?
I didn't say it. This whole thing.
I did.
I'm to the point now where I just want to walk away. I can't, of course. It's communications. It's a type of bullying. Is that the right word? Bullying.
Yeah.
The gang stalking, that's a given. But we're talking about other things now where nothing is private. Nothing. And May, I guess
you remember the name Buford Pusser? He was born in 1937. He lived until 1974. He was the sheriff of McNairy County, Tennessee, from 64 to 70. And he was known for his one-man war on moonshining, prostitution, gambling, and other vices along the Mississippi-Tennessee state line. And he was known for carrying a bat, like a baseball bat. And that was his, persuasion tool of choice. Well, with what's going on with me and the challenges that I have, I just get a bigger bat. I'm not, Rick, I'm not willing to give in. I'm just going to come out swinging even more.
I don't want to be violent. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to
I know.
I don't want to be any of that. What I want to do is get along. And then the alien laughs, like in the movie Mars Attack, and then stabs me, and then, moves on. It's crazy. It's crazy. And every day, it's more. It's not all of a sudden, something's going to try to, I'll come into my computer. Where did it come from? Why is it coming at me? And I'll block it. And then all of a sudden, all my icons move. And now I'm they're all over on the left. And why? What did I do to cause the organization I had on my computer to just like that? Then.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you know a lot of people. People call you. People send you emails. Me too. Okay, and they're all saying exactly what you're saying. Weird things are happening. The stress is increasing. Things aren't working right. The challenges are greater. Things are breaking more. It's really, really frustrating to them, and they call me, and we're all experiencing the same thing. So it's not like it's just one of us. It's all of us. No one I know says, it's great. Everything's great.
So to change the spin, I'm going to say, this coffee, there is a God. I'm drinking coffee while I'm waking up. I'm starting to get back into my body, and thank you, Lord. I have to laugh because there's nothing else I can do. I don't want to fight. And so what do I do next? Well,
you said thank you, Lord, right?
Yes.
Did I hear you say thank you, Lord? Okay.
Yes,
I'm going to
my coffee. There is a God.
Okay. I'm going to be on stage. Rick, I'm going to be on stage tomorrow at the Laclede Electric Cooperative meeting, and I'm going to do something that I've never done before.
To laugh like that.
Well, I'm going to start with a prayer, and I've never done this before. And in Vin Finelli form, it's going to be one sentence. Just like all of my bills that I proposed to the parasites in Congress and the parasites at the Missouri State Assembly. So here's the prayer. I'm gonna say this tomorrow, before I tell them in 2 minutes why they should consider throwing out the current incumbent and replacing that guy with me. Here's the prayer. Lord, please consider blessing us with clarity of thought, the desire to ferret out the truth, and the determination to act with honesty and integrity in all that we do. Do you think our Creator would, maybe grant that request?
Well, now, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? That's how
I got to tell you.
I'll tell you. It's all. Nobody's listening.
I don't know about that. You mean to
nobody's,
us?
Well, anybody. It's all of us. We're all in our own little universe, and then that's a proper way to look at things. It's actually true, and we're kind of floating around alone. That's because of ego, and we have separated the one from the other. That's what makes you different than me.
I got to tell you, Rick, nobody's listening. Actually, there are people listening. How do I know? I just went to...
Well, I know somebody's listening because they're trying to mess with me, so that's that. But okay,
well,
yes, I appreciate. Yeah,
I went to GCNlive.com. Hold on just a second. I went to GCNlive.com, and right this minute, we're in the middle of the top 7 broadcasts on GCNlive.com. They have a.
How do they know that? How do they know that?
I have no idea. I have no idea, but it's not because I'm paying them. It's not because I'm paying GCN to do that, but we're number 4. Out of all the broadcasts that are their top streams, we're number 4 on GCN right this minute. Now, it'll probably go up even higher as this broadcast continues. So in terms of is anybody listening or no one's listening, actually they are. They are. And I'm really glad, and thank you so much, class, for paying attention and listening to us. And I know tomorrow they're going to listen to the same broadcast because it's carried on republicbroadcasting.org.
When happened?
6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
How did Microsoft take over Skype? Did it first? Because when I first was using Skype, I never knew that it was Microsoft. I thought it was.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I believe.
When did it become Microsoft? When did it happen?
I'm not sure when it happened. A few years ago, but Skype was developed in Estonia.
Yeah,
I believe,
Soviet.
and it was a great application. It worked beautifully. Now I try to download the latest version because I deleted it and reformatted my hard drive and reloaded, the operating system from Microsoft. And now it says that, it won't work. It won't work because my operating system is not compatible, not supported any longer by Microsoft, and Skype won't work. So my newest computers, which aren't very new, will not run Skype. Now I've got some old ones that have, older hard drives and slower processors. They work fine, but Microsoft wants you to upgrade, and they will leave you in the dark. Now, since you hit one of my buttons, I'd like to talk about Microsoft.
I hit one of them.
You hit one of them. And let's just when we come back, I can actually address Microsoft. And from a consultant's perspective, what Microsoft has done and built their empire on bleeding people dry through selling defective software. Come get me, Bill Gates. I'll tell you the rest of the story when we come back. Sure, just as I said that, my Microsoft operating system computer just hung. Yeah, so I've got to bring the call screen up on that. I'm rebooting right now, class. So, all right, Microsoft. Back in 1990, I started a company. I founded a corporation that manufactured computers. And they were tower-style computers and file servers. And most of them ran the Microsoft operating system. And here's what I believe Microsoft did. They were the first ones to sell a defective product to the customer. They came out with a product and they said, if you had a problem with it, they'd say, okay, well, you need to upgrade. Well, how many versions of Windows are there? Well, I'll tell you. In 1985, Microsoft came out with Windows 1.0. 2 years later, Windows 2.0. Now, we don't think about Microsoft with Windows 1.0 or Microsoft Windows 2.0. And then in 1990 through 1992, they had Windows 3, like 3.1 and higher. Then in 1995, there was Windows 95. Now, the first product was defective, the second product was defective, the third product was defective, 95 was defective, but there's also 95A, B, and C. And then 3 years later, in 1998, they came out with Windows 98. And then they said, well, you need the Millennium Edition. That was 2 years later in the year 2000. Then they came out with XP in 2001. Then they came out with a total disaster called Vista in 2006. And then in 2009, 3 years later, they came out with Windows 7. 3 years later, they came out with Windows 8. And in 2013, they came out with Windows 8.1. And now we all have the pleasure of using Windows 10. So how many versions are there? Well, if you take out the dot versions, like the A, B, and C, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 versions of Windows. Now, at the same time, what was that?
Right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the dot versions, meaning dot something. All right, well, while Windows was coming out, in its iterations. In 1981, we had microshaft DOS. Then in 83, we had DOS 2.2 dot something, like 2.0, 2.1. Then in 84 through 88, we had Microsoft 3 dot something. Then after that, in 1988, we had DOS 4 point something. And then in 1991 through 1995, we had what I would consider the best DOS version, MS-DOS 5 point something. And we built a lot of computers with MS-DOS. And I got to tell you that you could take a small processor, not a lot of horsepower, not a lot of CPU cycles, and it would just run and run and run with MS-DOS. You take that same processor and you install Windows, and it would slow down. And it seemed like Microsoft and Intel were having coffee together, or maybe they were in bed together. And Microsoft would come out with a version of Windows. Someone would install that on his computer, and then the computer would run really slowly. So you took a perfectly good running DOS computer, put Windows on it, and it would really run slowly. So the customer would say, or the owner would say, boy, I guess I need an upgrade. So those computers could be upgraded, at least all of ours. Every single one of our computers could be upgraded because we never sold a computer that couldn't be. You could change the processors, the video cards, the hard drives, every component, including the motherboards, sometimes called the main boards, on our computers. That was a hallmark of our computer company, Virginia Data Corporation. And the reason for that was we didn't want ever to have our customers say, well, you sold us something, now we're stuck. Well, when Windows was installed on a computer, it would run slower. So you'd upgrade the hardware and everything would be fine until Microsoft came out with a new version of Windows, then it would run slower again. Then you'd upgrade the hardware and everything would be fine until Microsoft came out with another version of Windows. And it was like an endless cycle. And I want to talk about hard drives for just a minute when we come back. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and if you'd like to go to his website, richardallenmiller.com, richardalanmiller.com. And Doc Ram hit one of my buttons. I don't think he intended to, but he did. So here we go. Hard drives. Now, when DOS was in vogue, we built a lot of computers that ran on Microsoft or Microshaft, as I prefer to refer to it as. The DOS-based computers really just ran and ran and ran and didn't give us any problems. Once Windows was unveiled and customers started requesting that we build Windows computers and install Windows on their DOS computers, that's when the big problems started. A DOS-based computer, the hard drive would last a long time. I don't want to say indefinitely, but darn close. And they just worked. You'd power them up, and they'd power up. There's no blue screens they call them the blue screens of death. The computers just worked and worked and worked. It was a wonderful operating system. So the best thing that ever happened to Seagate and Western Digital was Microsoft Windows, because Windows beat up the hard drives and caused them to fail, within a year or year and a half, 2 years. So we were replacing hard drives like crazy. It was a nuisance because our customers wanted their software and they wanted everything on their computer, and their hard drive blew and they didn't back it up. So we had to image their software, before we sent the computers out the door brand new, so that we could at least get them back to where they were. And, we'd go through long efforts to try to recover the damaged, or the data on the damaged hard drive. So Microsoft Windows was a plague to hard drives. Now, DOS, some people think that DOS is obsolete. Well, I've got to tell you, in 1978, I had the best secretary. I worked for a division of the government, and I didn't get to choose my secretary. She was chosen for me. And we were an equal opportunity employer, so anybody could be anything in the government. Okay? So I got anybody. And she was the best secretary. She was the best secretary I've ever seen at work avoidance. I couldn't get her to do anything. Nothing. So I replaced her. I replaced her with a computer. I got an IBM type computer, and I got an analog to digital conversion card, and I recorded my voice, and I would say, "Hi, this is Vin Finelli. I'm not here. Please leave your name and number, and I'll call you right back." Well, that voice was so clear because I stuck this interface between the phone line and my telephone on my desk that people stopped talking. Now, if I picked up the phone live and I'd say, "Hi, Vin Finelli," there'd be silence. I go, "I'm here." I'm here. It's really me. So yes, you can do some really neat things with Microshaft DOS. It really works well. I've probably got 15 or 20 copies here at the farm if I can find them. And I've been keeping them because I think they really work well, and I've got some old computers that I can install it on. As a matter of fact, for our son's business, we have an old accounting system called Cougar Mountain, and it worked flawlessly. And our son needs software for his automotive business, and we're thinking, just put some MS-DOS on an old PC and reinstall Cougar Mountain, which we own. We've gotten away from that too. Bill Gates and his clones have decided that we don't need to be in the selling software business. We need to be in the software leasing business. So we'll charge you per month. Heck, you don't have to buy it. We'll just charge you per month forever. And your software will live out there in the cloud. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. I will not trust our corporate jewels to the cloud. It's going to live here, or we're going to put it on paper. So, Rick, those are my thoughts on Microsoft, and they keep gobbling up companies. There are fewer and fewer companies every day. The little guys get gobbled up by the big guys. The little guys can't compete. The big guys gobble them up, and then they change the rules. They charge more. They stop support. The once friendly companies have been gobbled up by the big conglomerates, and they're no longer friendly. And I don't like it. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so now I'm going to say a few things. This is important, what I'm going to say now. It's all going to shortly change. Why? Well, I just came back from Vancouver Island, and I was up for almost a full week up in Canada, and the fires that are going on up in Canada are as bad as they are down here in Southern Oregon, where I currently live and where I'm currently doing this Skype. And when I say this, the air is so toxic all summer. And when I say all summer, I mean all summer. I've had days where the air quality was like LA. But it would last for a couple of days, and then it would be clean again with air blowing through. This has not had but 1 or 2 days of clean sky since the beginning of summer out here on the West Coast. And it's all absolutely all the way up from the deep of Canada, because I was at the north end of Vancouver Island at one point, and the fires are terrible up there. And I came down through Seattle. The traffic was bumper to bumper, and the border, we sat at the border for an hour and a half. Thank you for your service. I wondered why, what's going on? All these different fires. And now I've got some answers, and they're not, well, I don't know that they're good or bad. Let's put it this way. Some, very limited, of the fires are from lava. What does that mean? Well, you can see it from space, where there will be a long, straight line up in BC. From space, you can see this. It's infrared pattern of bright red. There it is. It's exposed lava. And you can see, with tomography, you can see the steam coming off it. And then you look down in Northern California, and there's another one like that. People are saying, the glass, the slag, particle beam weapons. Look at how that house has been sliced precision-wise. And then you look over here, and you see the car half burned, like one part of the car is fine, and the other part of the car is turned into slag, including the glass. That's extreme temperature. And so what's going on? Are they beta testing weapons? Yes. Is debris? Yes, and yes. Every single explanation is true and more. Why? Well, the sun is traveling through space, and every 24,000 years, it returns to the same point, approximately, in space that it originated. So there's a cycle, and the cycle has to do with debris. And here there are dragon tails, ionized streams, and over here there's nothing, da-da-da-da-da. And the sun, right now, we talked earlier about it being white. When I remember it was yellow. This is called a solar minimum. That means that the sun, at this moment, is no longer hitting debris as it travels through space. And the Earth is trying to catch up with the sun in a little spiral going after the sun. It's not going around the sun, it's spiraling, the sun trying to keep up with it. And what the sun runs into, the sun normally absorbs. But right now, it's not absorbing it. So the solar minimums are now causing that debris to go around the sun and hit the Earth. And we can experience it with such things, as what we call UVBs, the longer ultraviolet, white light rather than the yellow light, the blue over that. And we watch manure, and the flies that are on it are different. It's affecting the smaller life. The Earth starts cracking. Why? It's absorbing this debris that's going around the sun, and it's expanding. Not so as to be significant, but maybe as much as 0.6 times it was when Moses was on this planet. And so the Earth is getting a little bit bigger, and as such, cracking is occurring, and such things as Kilauea, Venezuela, Alaska are now experiences 8.7, 8.6 earthquakes 14, 15 days ago, and then the fire starts. Well, that means we are about to have some geography change. And I don't know what's really going to happen. I'm a physicist, and I have concerns because nobody's prepared for this, mentally especially. I've got my water, and I've got my pistols, and I got my ammunition, da-da-da-da-da. But that isn't, it's going to be a nuclear winter. Nuclear winter could be ash from forest fires that last several years, where you cannot farm on the surface because your plants are not getting the specific bandwidths that they need because of the smoke, the change in the atmosphere, and all the rest of it. So we're going to spray some barium oxide to set up an ICBM nuclear shield, but it puts that oxide on the ground, and it starts to accumulate. And now what we have is a tinderbox, because it's like magnesium, it explodes when those metals, when exposed to certain levels of temperatures, don't burn, they explode. And it's a hodgepodge. And then we have the usual, all right, well, I'll finish that later, but we have the other, they add in other deniability. Oh, really? Oh.
Hey, you're breaking up a little bit, Rick. Doc Ram's going to be with us for the rest of the broadcast, which is about an hour and 14 minutes more. We'll be back on the other side of these commercial announcements. Doc Ram, you're talking about the weather changes, and of course there's a huge threat off the coast of Hawaii. And right now, Costco, well, actually, by yesterday afternoon, Costco had already sold out of generators, flashlights, lanterns, D cells, tarps, duct tape. And workers at, I'm just reading an article, MauiNews.com, and the workers were using, forklifts to try to keep up with the demand. And they had, at Costco, 18 registers were all open. They had all 850 shopping carts were in use. The 810 parking spots were occupied. They brought in nearly 300 employees to assist. And they even used the parking lot nearby at the Kmart to assist more parking. And they said that the wholesale store sold eight shipping containers of water from Monday afternoon to Tuesday afternoon. 8 shipping containers of water, 7,700 cases. And they said that the store could run out of water because they're not able to get another shipment until next week because of the closures. They said that cars were lined outside 45 minutes before the gas pumps opened at 6 a.m. And the spokesman said that the gas station was in gridlock 2 hours later by 8 a.m. So people are panicking. They're buying things that they should have bought way, way before all this. They should have had water stored months ago, years ago. Think about, why would anybody wait until the last minute? Because they believe the supply chain is going to keep just clicking along. It's dumb. It's irresponsible.
I don't know what to add to this other than right now it's all happening in front of our eyes in slow motion, and people are in slow motion starting to realize that we're about to have a change. Microsoft is the least of it. And while I woke up in a foul mood because I loaded Skype, and all of a sudden I have a new account on Skype that I never set up, and I can't get rid of it, and I can't just pull up Skype and there I am. It's now got other enhancements that I don't even know how to use it. They decide they want to change things. This is marketing. And why I drive an old 280Z made with real steel. It's also got real Girl Scouts on the tires, you know what I mean? It's made with real Girl Scouts. What's happening is about marketing. It is about having to recycle things like batteries. You know, the neat thing about a battery, it's more accurate than your clock. You can tell when the cell
you're talking about
yeah, car batteries. The car battery is possibly the single most accurate timepiece there is, as a metaphor. Now, this is all about marketing.
Well, I agree. We've got a bunch of Chinese factory outlet
Chinese
car batteries.
Vincent, it's China, not China.
Yes,
China.
We've got at least 30. Look at the
war going on between the Republicans and the Democrats today, and you can tell who runs which paper by which story they decide to put on the front end of it. And I've had enough. This is crazy. Both Trump, Clinton, Bernie Sanders. It's an embarrassment. And I feel like an ugly American. Why? Because a president of the United States is supposed to represent our most educated and our most morally correct. What has happened to America?
George Carlin said it best. Just think about how stupid the average American is, and then think about how half of them are stupider than that. Yeah. American philosopher, George Carlin. Yeah. I'm going to get to see it on Friday night in full bloom. Okay, Rick, what are we going to talk about when we get back? All set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares Stock Rams with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, the real Fox Mulder of the X-Files. So, Rick, you had gone on a speaking engagement. You went to Vancouver. Can you tell us what happened?
It was exceptional. Unity Church decided they wanted to have me speak on metaphysics and several things about sustainable lifeboats, and then do an 8-hour intensive workshop. And I ended up doing 2 workshops and 2 speaking events, and I met some incredible people. And what I'd rather do is, rather than me talk about it, because some of it has to do with me, and what I would rather do is have Grace Thorne and Julie Vassipoli, who accompanied me on this trip. And then we had a 4th woman, Gabrielle Deliso, that joined us from Las Vegas. We met Alfred Lamont Weber. He had a 17-bedroom mansion up in North Vancouver. 17-bedroom. He had. We then spent time at Catherine. I'm not going to give her last name, in a penthouse. $1 million penthouse. It was unbelievable. Over a yacht. And then I met Kevin, that lives down in the middle of downtown Vancouver, North Vancouver. But he was on the river, and there wasn't anybody around him for a mile. It's called Indian River. Was it Indian River or Indian Arm? Indian Arm. And he's an old rock and roll with a scratchy voice. And he plays rock and roll up there on the ocean, and it just echoed across the islands. And nobody's to hear it, except maybe moose. It was wonderful. Grace, come on over here, girl. And Julie who accompanied me, kept me normal, because we had a time. Here's Grace, and you talk to Grace. Yes, do that. Yeah, it's good from somebody else's point of view than mine. It was good.
Yeah. Welcome, Grace Thorne. Grace is a USA Preparedness instructor, and she's been on the air with her class from Ryan, Oklahoma, where her students would prepare all month to ask Dr. Richard Allen Miller the questions that only he could answer. And they'd ask Dr. Norman Shealy as well. So we've done a number of those broadcasts. I thought they were absolutely phenomenal, how young students could think like that at that early age of 6th grade. So thank you, Grace Thorne, for doing it. So what did you see, Grace Thorne, in Vancouver with Doc Ram?
Well, first, Vincent, I want to say that I want to wish you the best with your electric co-op adventure. And that prayer you said I thought was excellent, and how anybody, Christian or not Christian, could disagree with what you were saying. And I mean, that's what we should all want. But I just wanted to, Rick has already touched on some of the things I was going to talk about, but it was one of the most interesting, fun weeks I've ever spent. And starting with the first night at his sister's house in Longview, Washington, the beautiful scenery all the way up through Oregon and Washington and into Canada. I'd never seen all of that, and it was just so beautiful. Oh, and by the way, we did learn some things about Rick from his sister that he had failed to tell us through the time, if you know what I mean. He left out some details about himself. But so you
going to tell us?
No, I don't think he wants me to tell you.
Or would he be arrested by the end of the broadcast?
Well, he wouldn't like it anyway.
Okay.
But like he said, the first night we were wined and dined by Albert Weber. He did radio with Rick and his wife, and it was just a huge mansion they lived in. Like he said, 17 bedrooms, and 11 of those, they said, were occupied by students, mostly from South America. So we would see these they were beautiful people just wandering in and out through the house, but that was really neat. And then that night, Keith, the Cove man, took us to his house, which was just on a cliff that you had to drive. He drove us down. Well, he didn't drive Rick down because Rick wouldn't get in the car. Rick was scared to drive down. He had to walk down. And then we went part of the way down that way, and then we had to go down all these steps, 80 steps down to his house, but which was, like Rick said, on a river or bay or some big body of water. But it was just beautiful. And then the ferry ride. Oh, that was pretty exciting over to Vancouver Island, where we stayed the rest of the time. And I don't want to sound like a hick from the sticks, but I had never stayed in a penthouse before, and in every room you went in this penthouse, you would see the city or the yacht club, the sailboats, the big ships, and the ferries coming and going, and it was just spectacular. It was, but I do want to say a little bit about Rick, and because you homeschooled your kids, you may not relate to this, but when one of your kids is in like a Christmas program and they have the lead solo and they get up and sing like a little angel, and you're just so proud of them, and you wanna stand up and say, well, that's my boy, or that's my daughter. But that's kind of how we felt about Rick. And it was like the Canadians had never heard anyone speak like he did, and maybe they hadn't. I don't know, but he put on a real show for everyone. And Julie and I just felt really blessed to be part of his trip to Canada.
I've seen Doc Ram on stage in many venues, different states. And absolutely, when he's on stage, all eyes are on Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And you can hear a pin drop whenever he speaks, because people are trying their very best. They've got all brain cells turned on just to try to comprehend half of what he's trying to say. And I really do understand what you're saying, because the very first time, many years ago, when I spoke to Rick, I hadn't met him at that point. I was on the phone with him, and he was on the West Coast, and I was here in Missouri. And he said, after maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes of being on the phone, he said, Vincent, if you're understanding half of what I'm saying, you're doing fine or doing great or something like that. And I said, Rick, I'm going as fast as I can, and I got about half of it. So that's is that what you're trying to convey?
That's absolutely right. And as long as I've known Rick 5 or 6 years now, I hear him say some of the same things over and over. And I'm just now understanding and catching what some of that really means. And so I've had to hear it several times before I caught it. But yeah, I know people probably didn't understand all he was talking about, but it was a really intelligent audience, it seemed like, but the questions they asked him, and it was just from one end of the spectrum to the other, the type of questions that he would get. And he never said, I don't know. He just, at least he acted like he had the correct answer, and it sounded like he did.
Let me ask you this, Grace. Let me ask you this: when you got a chance to watch Dr. Richard Allen Miller and watch the audience, back and forth simultaneously, did you see? And you've seen the same kind of arrangements here in the United States. Did you see a difference in how those in attendance reacted to Rick? Do we act differently? Do we react differently? Or was it the same?
Well, it seemed the same to me. I didn't see any much difference.
Well, the people who I've seen come to attend Rick Miller's seminars aren't people who just show up because they've got nothing to do or they're trying to get either out of the heat in the summer or out of the cold in the winter. They actually want to be there, and they are really bright to begin with. I mean, that's what I've seen. And they're looking for more information. So,
Right.
It seems to me that maybe that's the common thread, that those were exposed to kind of the things that at least knew about the kinds of things that he was going to be talking about. So what did he say that you saw that galvanized them, where they were amazed, if you will? Can you share with us some of those topics?
My favorite topic that he talked about was, of course, the survival skills, and they all seemed to have lots of questions about that, and I don't, and they bought books afterwards, on that topic, and I just thought that they, that's the kind of information people need and want, and he just did such a great job of presenting it, and I think it made them want more.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. When we come back from this break, Julie Vasapoli, can you tell us what your thoughts are? What did you see? And then maybe, if we have time, can you tell us, each of you, what you've seen in the fires on the West Coast? Can you tell us what your thoughts are? We'll be right back. Class, you've heard Doc Graham talk about Julie. Well, here she is for the very first time on USA Prepares, Julie Vasapoli. I've spoken with her many times off air, and I'm delighted to welcome her to USA Prepares. So, Julie,
hi,
you
Vincent.
were with Doc Graham?
Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time. Actually, Grace said hit it right on the nose with so many of the things that happened. But go ahead and ask the question you were going to say. Go ahead.
So what did you experience watching Rick in live seminar in Vancouver?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, and this was my first experience to Canada. In fact, it was my first time out of the country to begin with, and to watch Rick. And I've taken a lot of different workshops and seminars and over the years, and know Rick well here in Grants Pass. But to see him in action in a classroom setting or a workshop, I have to say I was in awe, and I am still in awe of his knowledge base, the wealth, and what he says about his bio, the depth of his knowledge was astounding, and I'm still so impressed and so proud of Rick. If a person never takes one of his workshops, they wouldn't know just how much knowledge this man holds. And it's quite an impressive thing to see. And like I said, I've seen a lot of classes and been a part of it, but I have never seen anybody like Rick. In fact, Vincent, some of the comments that we heard from the people taking the course that he was teaching, that they had commented that they had never heard or saw anybody like Rick before. They were just so receptive and enthusiastic. Grace was talking and you were asking her about how he was received. Everywhere we went, we had such a warm welcome and outpouring of feeling their hospitality and eagerness to receive Rick. They just put out the red carpet, and they had a thirst. I think they were, like you say, very serious, bright students, and they wanted to know more. And another thing that impressed me, and I have never seen this before, ever, where an instructor will say, feel free to interrupt me throughout the session, and at the end of the session especially, and it was a free-for-all. Anybody could ask any question they wanted, maybe they were curious about something their whole life, and Rick was just like a walking encyclopedia. And he just said, bring it on, and that doesn't happen every day, where someone is that receptive as an instructor to say, ask me anything you'd like to ask, and I'll do the best. I may not know the answer, but I'll try. And to have that kind of a platform was pretty impressive. the people want to have him come back again. They are already ready. They were talking about having him come back to Canada again for additional workshops. So we just felt an outpouring of acceptance. I can't say enough about the hospitality, and it was one of the best trips I've ever had. And I think we're all going to have this memory and look back on it over the years as being a real treasure. And what a beautiful country. The scenery is just breathtaking. So that's probably what I wanted to say, to get across is I'm in awe of Rick. He has a different dimension that we don't see every day, and what a treasure. He is truly a treasure. And I can't say enough about that. You were asking about the fires here. I do not know about the actual progress that the firemen are making, but the air quality is still very smoky. It was that way in Canada as well. In fact, we were in awe that, under the impression it was just here in California, Northern California, and Southern Oregon. But as we traveled going up to Canada throughout our entire trip, there was smoke all along the way, along the whole western seaboard there, even up into Canada. And when we returned back to Grants Pass, it's still with us. So that's the take. I have not had a chance to read the newspaper to see how the containment percentage is. However, the air quality is still unhealthful here, and it was all along the way. Thanks, Vincent.
Yeah. Well, Julie, don't go away. When we come back from this break, I have a couple other quick questions to ask you. And I've got a couple comments, and I'd love to hear your reactions to my reactions of what I have seen with Rick in instructor mode at these seminars. So I'll tell you what I've seen, and I'd love to hear if you've seen the same thing. Julie Vassipoli is with us, and I wanted to share an experience that I've seen, Julie, when I'm with Doc Ram. And here it is. So when Doc Ram is at his booth and he's signing his books and people see him from a distance, they say, there he is, and they race over to see him, and they are grinning from ear to ear when they first see him, and they shake his hand, and they are just, that is like one of the heights of their lives, getting a chance to meet Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Did you see that same kind of thing?
Yeah, Vincent, I agree with you. It just seems like Rick seems to be like a catalyst, or he's like a fireball, that people are attracted to him, and it's my take, my observation, I think he seems like people want to get to know him, and they want to have something to walk away with from him. They want to take something from him, that he has something he offers that not just anyone can offer. And I think that's part of the attraction. And part of the attraction too, I wanted to comment about when he's teaching a class. It's very, very important to Rick not just to give what the itinerary was listed, the A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. It's important to Rick to not only do that, but to give his listeners and students more, as much as he can give of himself. He's very, very giving, and that's what I think people see when they're so delighted to first meet him, that they feel they're receiving. And he wants to give them as much as he can. And I feel like what the end result is when the students at the end of the day, they go and walk out of the room, that they have been expanded, their thinking. They have thought beyond what they thought they were going to come into that class in the morning. They walked out with so much more of the possibilities, even more than they thought they were going to learn. And I think that's a real important concept to Rick. That's part of his intention, his intent and purpose, he feels, is to give them more, so they become more than what they are. And I think that's part of what you see when they first meet Rick. They want to walk away from him having a little more.
Yeah, and the journey just keeps going. What I've seen when Rick is in speaking, he'll say, "Well, we're going to go grab a bite to eat after the convention closes, and if any of you'd like to come with us. And then then we all go to the restaurant and we take over the restaurant, and it continues.
Yes,
and then it continues after that.
Right.
It does not stop.
Yes. And that's what some of the people would say, does he ever sleep? Does he ever take a break? You're right. It's just there's so much, it's an endless supply of information. And it's astounding.
Any topic.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to ever tire. He just goes. And I think that is very, it's attractive. It's what people want to be around, positive, and it's, they want to be, get a part of that and be a part of that. To get on board. You're right.
What Rick brings to the table is looking at something that someone might have seen but didn't notice. Then talking about why.
Yeah,
why
he'll expound on it. He'll go into more detail, and then it just hooks them all the more, and the more they want to learn, and the more they want to learn about it. And it just goes like that. You're right.
One of the things that's happened to us here at USA Prepares, and Rick's been with us almost from the beginning, 2 hours a week, for years and years. What has happened is we have the opportunity to attract more listeners. And one way of doing that is by lowering the standards, lowering the level of discussion to include more people, but we won't do it. We want to bring those who are interested up to a higher level rather than bring the broadcast to a lower level. And that's what Rick does. Rick has an enormous lexicon that he uses when he's on the air, and it raises the number of words that people have in their mind now that they might not have had before. And by knowing more words, having a larger lexicon, you can think deeper, more precisely, and be more creative. And that's one of the plans. Julie, I know you're very close to Rick, and I'm going to say something that might initially be disturbing, but I want to explain what I've done. I received a call about Rick Miller. And the call was from another broadcaster who owns a network. And this guy said to me, Vincent, you have Rick on too much. You should limit him to a half hour, maybe once a month. I was stunned. I said, no. And then this guy wrote a hit piece on Rick Miller.
Yes.
And USA Prepares was carried on that network. And I was so outraged, so angry, that I told this guy, do not carry USA Prepares on your network. We are separating. We are going separate ways. I want nothing to do with your network nor you. And to this day, I have not talked to him. I don't want to talk to him. And he didn't only do it to Rick Miller. He singled out two people who have been with me almost since the beginning. One is Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor, Surgeon of the Year, neurosurgeon, brain surgeon. Limit Norm Shealy to a half hour a month. Limit Rick Miller to a half hour a month. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I was so angry. I'm angry just thinking about it, and it happened a couple of years ago. So there are people who would rather he not say the things he says. They would rather he not increase the lexicon. They'd rather he not improve the thought process, expose what's happening to the best of his ability and his research. And to me, it's unacceptable. So my reaction to that was I disconnected. I mean, nobody does that. Nobody says, I'll tell you what, let's disconnect so we'll have fewer listeners. But I was willing to do that because I believe the message that Dr. Richard Allen Miller has is so important. And I believe that you saw that kind of reaction, that the message is so important when you were in Vancouver.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yes.
Can you react to what I just said?
Listen. Yeah, absolutely. Listening to you, Dr. Norm, Shealy, Rick, these kind of guys come along once every couple hundred years. They're pretty special. They're unique and special in their information that they give. And I was thinking, listening to you, and I'm thinking about how it takes courage. These guys have to be courageous and think out of the box and go out of the box and step up that way for the rest of us. And it takes guts and courage to do that. And not everybody can do that, to, get up there and take a stand. And it's easier just to slink back and be just like everybody else and a listener, but to give the messages that they have to say that they feel are their purpose is so important. It takes courage. And that's something else that sometimes these people, like you were making a reference to this gentleman, I don't think they really realize just how courageous these guys are, and there should be more respect given, because not all of us get up and get behind the microphone like these guys do. And we need to have gratitude. I think we need to be more gracious and be appreciative of their efforts. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so when you think about Rick Miller standing in front of an audience,
mm-hmm.
he has no idea, for the most part, as to who is in the audience. He could have physicists, scientists, government spies. I mean, there could be anybody. And yet he opens up mm-hmm. himself to ask any question. He is willing to be attacked. However, he can defend himself very, very well. There's no question about that, verbally as well as physically. But what I'm saying is he is willing to tell mm-hmm. the audience, interrupt, ask questions, and I've got to tell you, most speakers absolutely, positively would never do that.
Right.
Never do that. Because they've memorized their script. They mm-hmm. know what they're going to say. They've said the same thing over and over and over again, and yet they really don't have the knowledge base. They're just saying words. And that is not right. the case with Rick Miller.
Well, I think...
And he's got...
what you're saying
like
is...
a steel trap.
Yeah. What you're saying is, I think what comes to my mind, what my dad taught me a long, long time ago, is that when you speak the truth, you can't go wrong with the truth. When I was growing up, and he would instill that in me as a young person. And I think that's true of Rick and Dr. Norm Shealy. When they have something to say, it's the truth to them, and so they can't go wrong with that. As long as you're saying the truth, and that's what they believe, and they feel it is the truth, that's what armors them and gives them the feeling that they have a right to say what they're saying. Because to them, what they're saying is the truth.
Julie, would you mind sharing a 10-second bio of just who is Julie Vasapoli? Would you mind?
Well, I'm retired. I've been retired the last 5 years. I was a teacher from grades K through 6, and I was an acting principal when my principal was not on campus. I was in charge. I was the one to be authorized to be in charge of the school. I did that for 28 years. I taught in Cypress School District in California. I loved my job. I loved working with people. In fact, I've always kind of forgot to pick up my paycheck. I loved my job so much. It was I always wanted to work with serving people, in the service area of helping. I have a special ed background in communicative disorders, and so I love people.
When we come back, may I ask you just a quick question about education? I was a teacher as well, and I felt the same way. I was there to teach. I wasn't there for a paycheck. Paycheck was just a nice aside. But I'd like to ask you, how has education changed from when you were teaching to today? We'll be right back. Julie Vasapoli is with us. She's a retired teacher and acting principal in the public school system. Julie, just a quick question for you. How has education changed in your mind? What are the big changes that you've seen with teachers? Do they still have that fire to want to educate and train and make the best students they possibly can make? Has that changed? What's different now?
Well, that's a very good question.
Or is it just a job?
Well, it's both. It's a job, but it's also a career, and it's a calling. It's a lot of things, and it's how one looks at it. To answer your question, when I first started teaching, there was more of an emphasis on teacher workshops, more of an emphasis on making the teachers even better. I once thought of it as a craft that you're constantly polishing, becoming a better teacher. A better teacher is, as you go along the way, because it's something that you strive to get better and better at being a teacher. And at the beginning, we had more tools. And when I first started teaching, we could emphasize more on arts and the music. And as time went by, that became less and less important as far as what we were instructed to accomplish, our objectives as teachers, unfortunately. And I think that is a discouragement to teachers. It kills the enthusiasm of the teachers if you can't be your own boss, so to speak, of your own classroom and run things the way you think they should be run. That kind of takes a lot of the fizz out of the equation. And I think as much as it is important to teach the academics, and make no mistake about it, that's very, very important, to know the 3 R's, arithmetic, writing, and all of that's so important. However, I think we've lost as teachers the significance of teaching good social skills and the golden rule, treating others the way you want to be treated, working, as a team, as a classroom, and sportsmanship, getting along, social skills. And the bottom line that I think is so important that needs to be emphasized in the curriculum is going on with citizenship. The word citizenship, what does that mean? When I was growing up, that was real important, because all the good teaching in the world and all the good learning in the world on the academics doesn't mean a whole lot if it's not implemented in society with good citizenship, how to treat other people. And so I think we've lost that.
Yes. When I was in Virginia, I taught at 2 levels. I taught high school computer science in the classroom, and I taught at the college level. Mm-hmm. And at the college level, I was told, here's the material, here's what you will teach. My reaction is, who wrote this stuff? This is terrible. And so I improvised, and I taught what I thought the students should know, because I thought I knew more about computer science than the text that they wanted me to use, and I improvised. And it got me in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
And that shouldn't be.
As a matter of fact, I got fired. But it wasn't the first time I got fired. I've been fired plenty. Now, in the high school situation, they didn't tell me. By the way, I taught college computer science for a while, and I really didn't like it. I didn't like it. I loved the students, but I didn't like the administration. At the high school level, I loved the administration, and I loved the students. And the difference was that at the high school level, they said, Vinny, we think you know what you're doing, so we're not going to tell you what to do. You do whatever you think you should do. So I wrote my own lesson plans. Now, was it easier? No. It was harder, because it took me more time, because I had to plan more, because I was building from scratch. And the students loved it. I loved it. But now I believe you hit the nail on the head. We have taken that freedom away from the teachers, and the passion to teach, yes, I think, is missing because of that.
You're absolutely correct. I feel the same way.
Well, Julie, we've got to have you back on, and Grace, we've got to have you back on, and Doc Ram, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Vincent. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, buddy.
I really appreciate it. Yes, and you too. And Grace Thorne, thank you. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.